I went through 100 coils, so you don't have to. Hey everyone, welcome to Arch's Garage, and in this episode it's coils and ohm meters. I've got coils. We've got Briggs coils, Tecumseh coils, Honda coils, Kohler coils, smaller Briggs coils, right? I've got some miscellaneous coils from 2 strokes. I've got an ohm meter, all right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the ohm meter and we're gonna go over these coils. Now in this video, you're gonna find it laid out in chapters. This way you can look for the manufacturer of the coil, the engine manufacturer. And just simply, if you look down in the description, you're going to find it laid out by timestamps. So each chapter will have a timestamp, and this way you don't have to watch the whole video. But I do recommend that you watch the beginning, the introduction, or the chapter that is on lessons. That's kind of important because it's going to show you a little bit about how to measure a coil, what you're measuring, and why you're measuring it. Now, in those chapters, I'm going to go through a handful of coils, and I'm going to show you some of the good ones, and some of the ones that are questionable, and some of the ones that are bad. And part of the reason for doing this is I think it just gives you a better overview when you're sitting there with one of these coils, is a little bit more of what to expect, because you're not measuring a new coil, and sometimes you're measuring a coil that isn't dead, it's on its way out, right? So that's another thing that you're going to be looking for. Now additionally, you can actually go onto the web, and what you want to do is you want to Google the engine code, not the model of the machine, but you got to go find the engine code for the engine you're working with. And there are a lot of videos out there that if you want to know how to do that, right? Well, Briggs, it's usually on a tag or whatever, but whatever the engine is on, you want to go find out what that engine model number is and serialization is, because the coil is going to be specific to that engine. You want to find out how to get the model code and engine code from your engine. That's like really important, because if you have one of these engines that I haven't done, right, you're going to want to know how to do that. So I can't tell you how to do that in every case. This is a good basic understanding of what to look for. Look it up, and you're going to see some area, probably under diagnostics and electrical, you should see some information on the coil, and it will give you a chart, and that chart will give you some information between the points, and they're usually listed as points A, B, and C, right? It's the same points I'm going to be measuring in this video. So it'll tell you what the resistance is between those points. So you're going to need an ohm meter for sure. But it'll give you the resistance, and it's not a specific number, it's a range. On every coil chart that you look at, it's going to be a range. It's a tolerance, and it's pretty wide. So that's kind of one of the cool things about this video, is because really for most of the engines that we come across and lawnmowers and everything, I probably got a coil that I'm going to be looking at, and you'll be able to look at that too with me and see that there are ranges, right? From these measurement points. And I think you'll get a feel for what you can expect to see if your coil is just on its way out, becoming unreliable, just too old, or it's working fine, or it's just dead. So again, guys, down in the description, right, take a look. You can watch the whole thing if you'd like, but down in the description you'll see on timestamps for the chapters that I'm working with right here. The video is about 35 minutes long, all total. So if you watch the intro and you watch the lesson introduction, and then you scroll over and fast forward over to the point that's of most interest, that's not going to take you long at all. I'll see you guys in a little bit. Check it out. So the purpose of all of this is to try to put a little bit of the sort of coil mystery to bed. Just get it to sleep. We're going to take the ohm meter and we're going to measure them in a few different ways, one at a time. And of course, I'm not going to make this whole video a half hour of me physically measuring every coil. I'm going to go through every coil, and I'm going to bring you guys in to show you some of the tips and tricks I have about coils and what the proper impedance should be, you know, on the ohm meter, how I read them, why we read them, and really how to try to determine whether or not your coil is good or bad. Now, what makes a coil go bad is that when the internal resistance of the coil gets so high that it doesn't work anymore. Coils don't generally short out, which would be no internal resistance. Coils tend to sort of just get worse over age. The small wires that are in here can vibrate, they can overheat, they can come apart, but that's kind of rare, that point where they sort of no longer work at all. Really what happens is you know, all of these coils, they're potted. The coil windings, the primary and secondaries are potted. There's a couple of spots where you can get some infiltration if they have, in this type we have a, this one's got a center pickup. This one doesn't, and I'll show you a closer look at that. But there is ways for water to get in over time and create problems for it. But mostly there's electronics in these things. These have electronic ignitions in them, and it's in the coil. And of course, that's the stuff that burns out, right? The components that are in there are very small. They work very hard. They're switching on and off all the time. And they're trying to make the voltage that you need to fire your plug. And they have a control circuit on them, which is what the tang is for. The tang is part of that control circuit. So when you ground out the tang, that's when you're shutting the electronics in the coil off and it stops firing. So when they get to be about, I don't know, somewhere around 6,000 ohms or so, they're just not reliable anymore. They'll start to malfunction. And sometimes what you'll see is you'll see heat issues. As the coil gets hot, it won't fire. It'll fire intermittently. And then as it cools down, right, it seems to want to work. So if you test it with your spark tester, when the engine's cold, you might think, oh, okay, the coil's good, right? But no, it's going to fail when it starts to get hot. So you need a few different tools to check a coil. So a spark tester is part of the story, but it's also an ohm meter and just a good physical look at the coil itself. So let's get started. I'm going to start going through some coils. We'll be back in a minute. All right, let's get started. Now I'm going to switch this to ohms. There might be a little bit of glare, so I will read off what's in there. Now, it's in mega ohm, but I have it set to like a floating scale. These are actually Briggs coils. And although they look a little bit different, they are Briggs coils. This one there's a newer motor. It's an overhead valve. And it's on pressure washers and a few other things. It's bigger. They don't really always rate them in horsepower, but it is a bigger motor, and it uses a bigger screw. So it's a little bit different diameter slot, and also the spacing for the standoffs, the mounting, I guess the mounting studs or pads. This is more of a standard coil. It doesn't have a center piece that's exposed, although it usually is back in underneath this plastic. It says this side out, and it says this cylinder side. So some of them will say that. So you want to be looking for that. Now this is the primary side. So effectively this is the power input side. And this is your secondary, right? Which is, we consider that to be high tension. And again, here is the tab. So when you short the tab to ground, you're disabling the electronics inside the coil, and then it stops firing. Now, another thing I talk about is you want a good ground, right? So you could see that there's a clean area here, but it's not so clean here. So this is the side, this is this side out, so this is the side that the screws were holding this thing down. And what happens over time is that the rust starts to form, and then it actually seen it where it gets impregnated into the aluminum standoffs, you know, the mounting bosses, and it'll raise the coil up a little bit, and then the connection isn't that good. so it won't fire consistently. So a lot of times the problem is simply the coil has gotten dirty, and because the body of the coil, these metal laminates, that's what they are, they're laminates, right? It's not grounding itself, this part here, to the body or metal of the engine. So I often refer to that as getting a good ground, right? You need that. So I recommend cleaning these things on the wire wheels. Now, some people have asked me, I think in the past in my other videos, is, well, what is it from here to here, right? But you don't really need to know that. This one, it's about 4 ohms, 4,000 ohms, okay? You don't really need to know that, because the action of the coil and the sections of the coil, the primary being this side, it is ground to the inductor wiring here, which then transfers to another set of coil wires, okay, which then ends up on the secondary. So you want to know secondary to ground, all right, and then you want to know the signal wire to ground, because we ground the signal wire, and that's what shuts the coil off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start measuring these things. So it doesn't really matter which end where you put, because we're just measuring ohms. And sometimes you will not get a good reading straight away because they're dirty. Now see, this one's damaged here, but we have other boots. And you always want to look inside here, right, the plug end, because if it's dirty and rusty, you're going to have to clean that. So this one is 6. See, I was getting over 6. Now, with it cleaned up, it's 4.5. Okay, that's not bad. Now let's measure it from the ground of the body to our tab here. I'll bring you in a little closer. 3.2 ohms. Typically, I like to see them a little bit lower than that, but that's not too bad. So we got 4.5. 4.51. I'm going to try writing that on these things. Let's see what this one is. .26, and that's 1,000 ohms. It says K ohms. So this one's kind of beat. 3.8. All right, so this one's getting tired, and this is a fairly newer design. I actually pulled this one out. It will fire, but I was having some issues with this motor running. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to try and write 4.5 and stuff on these things and find a place. I recommend cleaning these things. And in my last video, which I'll leave a link, I actually show how very often I clean these things up and I can get a coil to run properly again. It's just something about it when they get really dirty, they don't like to fire, and part of the problem is the grounding. Also in here too, so I'll put acid in there and I just wire wheel the body. I dunk it in some solvent, wipe everything down, and you can oil them too. If you put oil on the laminates after you've cleaned it, it'll actually help it to work a little bit better. And some people say, well, rust doesn't really matter. Well, it does, right? Oh, by the way, when you run the wire wheel in this direction, right? In the direction where the flywheel would spin. Because if you hold it this way and the wheel is going like that, it'll grab these laminates and bend them and it'll destroy them. Right? They have to be in parallel alignment. This has to do with the fields, the flux, the lines of flux in the magnetic resonance of the coil, that each one of these has a line that it follows. And when you stack them together, you consistently increase that line, and it just makes it stronger and stronger as opposed to one solid. So one solid would only have one line of force around it, whereas these, however many laminates you have here, and I can't even count them all, there's quite a bit. So that increases the strength of the magnet. I'm going to keep going. We'll be back in a little bit. Okay, so here's a Briggs coil, and I want to show you this. Now, this is about 4.48 to 4.5, right? But when I go from the body of the coil over here, I'm getting 6.9. Right, it's actually unstable. 6.7. Okay, so this coil is starting to go bad. This one's dirty in here, so we might get a bad reading. I'm not getting any reading. See? Now we could try cleaning it, but I'm not getting any reading. Let's try it here. 18. This coil's bad, and as the internal resistance starts to go up, and you can actually measure that from here to ground, right? You can tell it's starting to go bad. So I'm going to put this one in the bad pile. As I go through them, I'm going to show you the ones that are starting to have these like anomalies. Okay, Briggs coil once again. It's in really nice shape, right? It's pretty clean. It's a little different design, and I'll show you, but let's look. 2.6, 2.7, right? Moving around a little bit because there's a bit of dirt in here. 2.60, that's why I say you got to clean, all right? And then to here, the control circuit, 9.6. So 2.6 thousand ohms, right? That's about as good as you're going to get. And you could see that the resistance from here to here, it's a little different than some of the other coils I measured, but it seems to be correct. Now, I just want to show you here, you see some of the open wires, right? This is where they've terminated it. If this starts to get loose, this is actually stamped here. So they pull the wires through this copper stud, and then they stamp it down. And if that starts to loosen up, like here it's soldered, but here it's not, right? They're joined here. If that starts to loosen up, you're going to have a problem. Now this one also is a little bit different design. Notice the extra pickup over here. So it's a little different model, but it's still a Briggs coil. Now here's one that is going to the end of its life. 7.18 thousand ohms. That's K ohms. And then to here, about 8.2. So that's about fair, right? But it's here. So 7.19. It'll run, right? But it could be very unreliable. And I've already cleaned it once. It looks like I've already cleaned it. It has a nice long coil wire on it. And that can be useful for repairing things. It also has a nice boot and it has a nice clean end. So what I do with these, and I just keep a few because things happen, right? There's damage, it can occur. There's things that have happened over the years to where I'm like, it's okay, I got another end, and I'll keep a bunch of these nice clean ends because they get rusty, but everything else is fine. Now here's one that's running wild, and a little later we'll check it again after I clean it, but watch what happens. I can't get it to stabilize. Oh. See what I mean? So it's just all over the place. Now this one, still Briggs, right? It's got a nice long lead on it, so it was probably for a bigger motor. .2. I was getting 15 before. 4.9. 13. See, that's getting high. That's up to 502. So it's dirty, right? This is another one that would benefit from 4.4, 4.5, because I'm measuring at a different point. This is another one that would benefit from a cleaning. Here, look how clean it is, right? Not getting anything. Up 3.7. So there's something wrong. This is like brand new. There's something wrong in here. Let's see. Yeah, she's not making good contact. We're gonna test it again. 3.70. See a big difference, right? This needs to be recrimped. 12.1. And this one also has this little piece here. So it is a slightly different design. All right, so we need to mark this one, and let's look at this one. This one's pretty dirty. I'm not getting anything. Yep. 12.2, right, to the signal. So this is the last of the Briggs, but we did these originally, but this one is 9.3, and this one is 10.5. They are a little different. See the difference in size too. But it's a similar type coil. All right, but this is a little high, but I'm going to hold on to these because they're just that much different. So worst case, I could use them for testing or sizing up a coil if I have a problem with a motor. But they probably at the end of their life. I seem to remember that the motor I was working on, I took this one off and I put a different one on that had a lower reading. All right. Next up. Now these are Briggs coils, but unlike the other Briggs coils, right, I want to be clear. The other Briggs coils are slightly larger and they're found on the standard 3.5, the old 3.5 horsepower motors, flatheads, and the bigger 5-6 horsepower flatheads, the older ones. And I've measured them over the years because I'm more familiar with those coils because, well, I do a lot of Briggs, right? Why not? That's what's out there mostly. And the impedance or the ohm measurement on those is pretty much the same on 10 horsepower, 13 horsepower, etc. Now these are the smaller ones, and I say smaller because like this one's pretty small. And these are all found on, there might be a couple of strays in here, but they're found on the EX series overhead valve engines. So let's get started on these guys. I'm going to start measuring them out, and I'll split them into categories again. Okay, so now these, there are a few different versions. So this one is pretty common. I think tab is here. Usually this side out, it says. So this is up. The tab is underneath. That's very common. This one is a little bit shorter. Okay, and they actually measure out differently. This is very common. And then there's one that, this is just a little older, but this is this side out. So let's go through them real quick. And these over here are questionable. By the way, these are kind of neat. This is for Briggs engines, and this also fits on flatheads and what have you, and it is a generator. So let's see. So I want to keep the ones at about 5 or 6. These are a little bit different. That is 5.89. And this is 5.1 ohms here, right? That seems to be pretty common. And that one's nice and clean. So I'm going to keep the cleanest ones. This is 6. 5.1. That one's still good. See, these are a little bit different. These coils are not as good, guys. I've replaced several of them. This one's all over the place. It's trying to get to 6, but it's dirty there. We're gonna chuck this one. That one does. I don't get a good feeling, right? If you have a bunch, you can afford to. I'm gonna just keep saying that, you know, why fool around? 5.6, 4.6, not bad. And you see the tang comes out on the end. See, this one's a little bit different. See, the tang comes out from the main body, but this one here, the tang is, it's like comes up on this little piece here. So they're a little bit different. Now we got these smaller ones. And things change, right? When it is a different coil. And again, it's also for some of the like really cheesy Walmart Briggs EX. This is 9.57. So, and 4.4. But I don't want to throw it out because I don't have that many of these. 16.3, yeah, that's dead. See, 16. Now these are the ones that I noticed were real questionable, and they vary a little bit. See, this one's a little bit different than the others. .5 mega ohms. You're dead. That's mega ohms, right? That's like, again, that's almost, it's like it's not even connected. There's so much resistance in that. 2 point, it's again mega ohm, searching, it's hunting. When they start whacking out like that, next, not that many, right? A lot of these were bad. This one's also nicked here. All right, next up is Tecumseh, and Tecumseh's seem to come in two variations. This is the one that I'm most familiar with, but this did come on some of the slightly smaller motors. This came on almost every other motor they had. However, I have seen this design sometimes on a overhead valve. And those are nice motors. I just threw another one out because I don't use it. Notice it's inset here. And on this one, it's not inset. So this one could have gotten damaged. Let's try it. This one's pretty dirty. Yeah, that's a problem there, see? That's going to be an issue, right? You got to clean these before you put them on, and that'll cause you problems. So this is 2.8 K. .485. Let's try the little guy. This is spring inside here. 4.16 K. $253 ohms. Wow. I think we're going to have problems with some of these. $2.7 K. We're not getting a good reading here. .407 K. .7 K. So 2.7 to 2.8 seems about right on the primary to secondary connection. 0.388 ohms. K ohms. Wow. That's a lot. This one looks pretty clean in here. This is .5 something mega ohms. So it's dead. What's it in here? 244 K. Yeah, she's all over the place. Although it's got a nice spring in it. Let's get back to Tecumseh. So I've been averaging them. So this one's okay. So what does okay mean? All right. 3.72, that seems to be pretty common. That's about the high end. I got 2 point something, that's K ohm. And then to this terminal here, 299 ohms. All right, I had one that was 0.4K, which is 400 ohms, all right, because it's a sliding scale. So this one's okay. Now this is a generator style. I have a couple of these somewhere. I don't have all my coils out. I'm sure there are a few sitting around in a few spots, but I did put a lot of them into these boxes. I mean, I'm going through like 100 coils. Let's see what this one does. Yeah, it's having problems getting a reading. But it might just need to be cleaned. See, it's picking something up. 10, 9, I think it needs to be cleaned. And then to here, 277. All right, so I think that's all of the Tecumsehs. So you could see some of them were quite questionable. Anything over these numbers here that we just went through, I would be very suspicious of. Notice it is a little different than the Briggs. Honda on deck. All right, I've split up the Honda coils. I got some ones over here that are very questionable, and these over here are, I think they're good. So this one, now they come in a couple of different styles, I'll show you. This one we're getting 11.33K. And then to the switch, 11.5. Now that's the common, it seems to be the common denominator, right? This one has a more sort of squared off, flattened, circular here. It's got a couple of, it's like this one. And then there's this style, which is very common. It's just a cylinder. So we know this one is good. $14.77. 11.3. So a little different, but probably still got life left in it. This one's a little different as well. See the somewhat flats on it? It's like 3 different types, it looks like. Hold on, we gotta shove that all the way down. 10.5. So that's about what I get for the nicer ones. 11.3. So this one we know is very good. $9.2. And what do we get here? 11.4. All right, so that one is very good. I'm finding about 9 to 10 seems to be what you're looking for. 1,000 ohms. 9.45 K. K being 1,000. 11.4. Excellent. Sometimes it helps just to, you know, if they're dirty, it can really screw. Oh, this one's filthy inside. It's like 10, but it's all over the place, see, because it's filthy, it's all rusty. So we're gonna chuck this one. Right, when you have this many, right, you know, there's no point. This one's really nasty inside too. I'm not getting anything out of it. And I think to here, we got 11. So sometimes the secondary can just burn out. I think this is the last one. Yeah, look at that, 0.6 mega ohms. It's no good. Right, it's not shorted, it's almost no inductance or no connection. Right, something's really wrong in that coil. Kohler in the house. Okay, now these I'm not sure what they are. They may be Kohler as well, because they look like these guys here. Yeah, these are Kohler too. They're just a little different. These are the nice ones. And this one, I think this one is a newer Kohler. It's got a brass insert in there. That's kind of neat. These are just really well-made coils. This one here, this one's got the huge, long. It sets up differently. It was a different. A lot of Kohlers, especially the older ones, they could mount the coil on the side or like this, right? So usually it'd be like the plugs here and the coil's mounted here, or sometimes they put the coil all the way over here, and it depended upon how the kill system went, the brake, engine brake and kill. So let me go through these and I'm going to find the similarities. All right, so I ran through the Kohlers, and what I'm finding is about 9 to 8, something like that. Let's see what this one is. This one's 8. Yeah, let me put it so you can see it. So it's 8K, and this one has a pigtail. It's 0.589. Let me shut the air compressor off. Okay, that's better. So you see, this one's a little bit high, and we'll use the same type here. So I have these. I see some issues with the ones over here. So this is another big one. 8.1K. Here's the pigtail. 0.589K. Right. So that's 589 ohms. So these seem to be the same, so they're probably good. Now, we got these, the smaller ones. They changed the design a little. We're 10.45K. 4.5. Now, that's a little high for these little guys. Even that one's super clean. See, this is 5.86K. This is 4.1. See, big difference. Just because it looks good doesn't mean crap. This is 9.77. This is 4.3. It needs to be cleaned. So this one's pretty good. This is 9.8, 4.2 ohms. So this one's pretty clean. This is the 10.46K, and here it's 4.5 ohms. So we're going to keep this one as well. So we got a couple there. Now these were pretty odd. This is a big one. This is 7.9K. All right, I was getting some weird 338, so that's 338 ohms. So that's not too bad. And sometimes you can't get a good connection because they need to be cleaned. This one's all over the place. It's just mega ohms, and it's just riding all over. This is the one that I did not get good reading from, so that's dead. And here's a little one that I think was dead. Let's see. You see, it's all over the place. Yeah, 1.8 mega ohms, and over here. See, 4.3. So on the switching circuit, it's not too bad, but on the secondary, you know, the high tension side, it's garbage. So let's take a look at these. Now these here, these are what you would find on, let's say, like a Briggs 2-stroke lawn boy. And this one also, I think these would be like, you know, 2-strokers. I don't have any numbers or anything that I can really read off to you. This one's made in Japan. Let's see what we get. Now, let's do these first, these two here, because we have something to compare to. A little rusty in there. 0.459K. All right, so that's about 500 ohms. Well, 450, 460 ohms. And then to here. Uh-oh. That's like, I'm not getting anything. Okay, well, my leads right now are 143 ohms, so we have an error on everything. We'll just call it a 100 ohm error. Actually, it's not even that much. I need to get new leads. Not getting anything on this one. Let's see what this one does. $362 ohms. And to here. I'm not getting anything on this. Let's see if we get anything going this way. So either the coil's bad or it just is way out of range. So we're getting something this way. 1.938 mega ohms. Wow, that's a lot. Almost 2 mega ohms. Not getting anything out of this. Right, there it goes. 6.39 mega ohms. It's because it's dirty in there. I don't think these coils are any good. We'll keep them around just in case, right? I mean, there's two of them, so this one, let's see what we get on this guy. 11.12, so basically 11,000 ohms. And let's go to here. I'm getting something. It's dirty, so it's kind of all over the place. 39.1 ohms. That sounds about right. And now let's go for this guy. She's all over the place. 15 mega ohms. I think this one's dead. Yeah. 18 mega ohms. Yeah, she's dead. Of 3940 ohms. So something's going on in here. Yeah, she's dead. Okay, so we know this one's garbage. All right, that's it for this one, guys. So after going through all of these coils, well, I must have gone through like 100. So it's probably going to be the title, right? I went through 100 coils, so you don't have to. What do we wind up with? Hey! A lot of coils. These are all garbage, right? Just from what I went through. But the nice thing is, I don't really need any more coils. So if I haven't been collecting a lot of coils. Honestly, I've been throwing out most of the coils that I get. That's how much I process. So these are all garbage. They're all questionable. I'm going to give them to my scrap guy. That's Juan.
Hello.
Carry them out in the yard and put them back there. He's coming tomorrow. All garbage. There are some variations, guys, whenever you measure a coil. So you can see that within a family, engine family of coils, there's some variation. And I think if you look back through, you can see sort of the nominal numbers, what they are and what's good for each one, because they're not all the same. So from manufacturer to manufacturer, the readings are slightly different. And so they should be within that range. And if they're not, your coil's probably bad. Now, the last thing is I just want to remind everybody that you want to, before you install it or reinstall it, clean the contact areas, the areas that make contact to the screws, to the standoff on the engine block, the electrical connector, that blade connector, the inside of the primary wire, right? You can put a little solvent on or something, pull the boot off, get in there and clean with a wire brush, maybe a little bit of acid, vinegar will do it, battery acid, or just a wire brush and maybe a little file, a little bit of sandpaper, whatever you have. Make sure everything is good, and you can also get a spark tester too. And that's about it, right? I saved just a handful of these, right? Because I do use them. I probably still have a few more. I do use them from time to time. If you have 2 coils on a machine, right, and a lot of the Briggs Intex or whatever, they'll take a coil here and they'll put a coil here. A good thing to do is to make sure the 2 coils essentially are measured the same on any engine with twin cylinders, right? They should be very, very close to each other electrically, you know, by checking with the ohm meter. If one is kind of far out, buy a pair. Buy a pair and make sure that they are the same, right? The motor will run better, it'll run smoother. You know, on a twin cylinder engine, anything that's a little off from one side to the other is going to cause it to run rough and to be down on power. So that's it, guys. Like and subscribe. Hopefully this helped. And don't forget to check out my original video, which is, well, it's getting old now, that video. I did it a long time ago already, a few years ago, and it's fairly popular. It's probably the most popular of like all my videos. So don't forget to check that one out. I do a little bit of testing, a little bit of experimenting with that. I try to narrate a little bit differently. You know, I wasn't as good at doing things, and again, it was an early video, but it's still very informative and people like it. I will see you guys on the next one, and yeah, I can't wait to the next project. I guess right now for me is I'm going to go clean up. See you later. Things about this video. So the video is broken into chapters. So I wouldn't want to, you know, expect... Uh-oh. We have an alert. That's a major storm warning. Yeah, I have to go check that in a minute. Maybe I should just go check that now. Stand by. Let me find out what it is. Intro. So I'm going to add this bit. Oh, jeez.